Hi, everyone. I will let everyone start to trickle in just slowly, but I'll start with introducing myself. I'm Savannah Nickerson. I'm the Communications Assistant for Digital Workshop Center. I'm super excited to get this second webinar of our Professional Growth webinar series going and started. What we do with these webinars is it's a free resource for anyone, returning students, current students, and if you're not a student with us, this is still very much available to you as well. We'll send out a recording afterwards so that you have this in your toolkit at all times. Thank you for attending and thank you for joining us. I'm super excited about it. Jenny, if you want to go to the next slide. Just a quick little who are we and what do we do as a digital workshop center? We are an alternative educational option for those who are non-traditional students and those who are in the professional workforce today. We were established 2006. It's been a minute since we've been around, and we're a school for tech careers that are focused on job skills and professional development. We have all of our certificate programs are going to be online boot camp format with live expert instruction. You are lucky enough to have two of our instructors today as your presenters. So that's really exciting. And we also will have future ones in the next couple of months, in the next year. We hope to make this a more consistent thing on a quarterly basis. So we're very much looking for feedback. If you have ideas, if you're looking for something in your professional world, please do reach out to us and ask us, hey, this would be a very valuable resource for me. And we'll try to get it going for you. We definitely want to hear what you guys are thinking as well. All of you might have received a message that you might have ignored, which is totally okay when you first came in. I would ask that if you just want to press the chat and make sure that you have Slido available to you. It should be right there, ready to go. There's a Q&A that we're going to do there. If there's questions that pop up, I want you to put those questions right in that chat. If you can't find Slido, if it's not popping up for you and you do have questions that you want to ask, definitely you can either private message me or just put it in the chat for everyone to see. And we'll make sure at the end, when we do our little rapid fire 15-minute Q&A, we'll get your questions answered. Other than that, we'll go and kind of overview what's going to go on in this webinar. If we want to go to the next slide. Today, Dina and Jenny, they're both freelancing experts. They've had years of experience as freelancers, so they definitely are great people to pick their brain at. We're going to go over the financial management of a freelance career. What does that mean? How do you track your invoices? How do you budget? How do you manage that cash flow of your business? And how do you save for those important things like taxes? We're also going to kind of talk about the productivity in freelancing and handling multiple projects. How do we set our work hours and boundaries so that it works for us and our client? And how do we manage those tasks when we have a bunch of different projects from different people all at the same time? So I will hand it off to Dana and Jenny today. I'm excited. If anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to private message me. Thanks.
So we are going to first talk about how freelancers are going to manage tracking invoices, budgeting, cash flow, taxes, of course. And so if you want to go to the next slide, Jenny, I'll just hop right into it. After you start your business, you're so excited, you're doing something you love, you have your own business and it's exciting and you're getting clients and it's awesome. But the backbone of that is going to be managing those finances, invoicing people professionally, tracking your expenses. And that can be hard to do, especially as creatives. I know I struggled quite a bit with that because it's not in my nature. It's not the fun part of it. It's things that you have to sit down and do at your laptop that aren't necessarily as creative as maybe what you're doing for the actual job. But it is very important because we don't want to look unprofessional and we don't want to get caught. With no money, with no savings, and that sort of thing. So, talking about your business bank account, you do need to set one up. You do need to have separate bank account. Hopefully, you've set your business up as an LLC or, S Corp or something different other than just a using your social security number. And there's a lot of different reasons, including insurance with that too. Of course, liability, what you're going to be on the hook for if something goes wrong, if somebody sues you. So that's why it's really important to actually set up a business, register it with your state, get your EIN number. After you do that, then you can set up your business bank account, and then you can get your business checks or have your online banking to pay people and pay yourself with. So that should be kept separately. There should always be a way to track how much you've paid yourself, how you've paid other people, who you have paid, and that sort of thing. And also a credit card. If you need to get a credit card in your business name, this will help as well. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. I did not have a credit card on my business for the first like 6 or 7 years. I kind of just did it with my debit card. But then with more Google advertising, with more Facebook advertising or social media advertising, it just became apparent that a credit card was going to be better. So then I could set up an actual business credit card. So very important things to think about. Maybe you don't have to set everything up at once. I certainly didn't. I waited, I've had my business now for 14 years and I waited till year 6 or 7 to get the credit card. So it just depends on what works for you, but it's important to keep all of that separate. And so then when you go into your invoicing, you want to have a professional invoice that goes out. You want to make sure they're on time, and you want to make sure that they're specific. So you know what you're invoicing for, the client knows what you're invoicing for. You can use Word if you want, or if you have a different program, if you're using QuickBooks, Quicken. Jenny will talk later, I think, more in detail about different apps like Harvest that you can do a lot more things. So you can do productivity and you can do invoicing, expense tracking on some of those apps also. So whatever works for you is the best way to do it. I will say in my business, I used QuickBooks for the first 9 years of my business. And then I got really mad at QuickBooks because I am not an accountant. And that is admittedly not my best subject. Like it's not fun for me. It's not something I want to sit and do because I am a professional that is paid to focus on something that I am really good at. So I believe in paying other people that are really good at other things I am not, because time is money. And if I have to sit here and hem-haw for an 8-hour day over putting my expenses in and all that kind of stuff, my time might be better used for something else, and I can pay somebody to do that. So that is the only other thing in my business I actually pay somebody to do. Not that you have to, you certainly don't, but I think it's a better use of my time and my just productivity personally, that I do that. So I like to focus on my strengths, and that is something that kind of brings my energy level down. So just kind of word to the wise there, but there are a lot of different tracking methods out there. So I used QuickBooks for quite a while, and then I got frustrated with it, and I went to Excel. So whatever works for you, right? I told my accountant at one point in time, he might just get a pencil ledger, like handwritten. He's like, whatever, just get it to me. And I was like, okay. Excel, of course, is a lot better for everybody involved. But literally that's what I do right now, because that's what works for me. I use Word to invoice instead of using QuickBooks now to invoice, but it's a professional invoice that I send in a PDF. So some of these things we don't think about until we're actually sitting there and we're like, oh yeah, I got to do that. And so these are just little tips and tricks to kind of make sure you have your ducks in a row when you're starting your business. The other thing is expense tracking. There's going to be a lot more expenses than you initially think to your business, even if it's, all online. I basically need my laptop and I need my phone, and I can do business from anywhere. But there are still things like insurance that I need. I carry professional liability insurance, which kind of seemed a little silly to me actually at the beginning, but some people require it to bid on those jobs. And also just to protect you when you're dealing with a lot of different things. There are contracts involved, there are promises made. If you are, even if you're doing marketing campaigns, design work, other types of freelance businesses that we talk about at Digital Workshop Center, there still is liability involved in that. For instance, if you have a contract that you are not supposed to use their logo in any other capacity, or you're not supposed to use their fonts in any other capacity, and you download those to your laptop and you accidentally use a font, let's say, for another client, then they can sue you over that. And so it's always good to have insurance where that is needed. You're going to want different supplies and tools. But maybe besides your laptop, I still use, notebooks and pens and printers and ink, and all of that is an expense that is not free to my business. And then you have, your gas. If you're driving to meet clients, you can keep a record of that, and use that on your taxes. And for coffee, if you take somebody out for coffee. Now, I will say, because I do try to get away with a lot, and this is again why I have an accountant that keeps me very honest, IRS, if you're listening. But I cannot pay for it on my business account if I'm just buying myself coffee, but I can pay for it on my business account if I'm buying myself and a potential client or a media representative or whoever that has to do with my business coffee. So that was something I learned, and that was good to know. And I asked him if I entered a poker game that was with one of my clients one time, and asked him if I could take the buy-in fee. He did not let me do that. And so there are rules and regulations to all of that, and kind of knowing and having somebody there to ask, or being able, to Google it and find reliable information is really good. But those are still, even if I buy my own coffee, that's an expense to me that maybe I wanted, maybe I didn't want. Because when I started my business, I probably had 3 or 4 coffee meetings, a day, like a couple times a week. I was very jazzed on coffee most of the time. And that was a big expense. Coffee is not cheap when you go and you sit at a cafe. So different things like that. Think about memberships to things, memberships to, the chamber, to professional development organizations, and different networking of groups are going to cost money as well. And so sitting down and thinking about all of those, and people, use the term write off, and it's fun, but it comes out of your bottom line. It's a fun term that we all use, but it costs somebody money, whether you can take it on your taxes on the back end, or it's just an expense that you incur that you don't really get any credit for. But these are all business expenses to look at. Different apps that you might want to use. I have a VPN and different stuff like that. That's a business expense because, again, protecting my computer. And then again, other professional people that you might want to use. So all of that tracking has to go somewhere, whatever app you use, Excel, whatever kind of program you use. Those are things that you need to think about when you're starting a business, because they're going to cost you and they're going to be part of that. And also, taxes and how you manage your cash flow is a part of that. Jenny, if you want to go to the next slide. So when we talk about your cash flow, you might be going from a bi-weekly paycheck that is 100% guaranteed as long as you're keeping that job, to billing clients monthly. And do you have the same clients every month? And how much money are you going to be bringing in? And that can be really hard to manage. I know I struggled with it quite a bit at the beginning, because um, it depends then on when you can pay your bills and when you can pay yourself to pay your, mortgage and your car payment and buy your dog food and, all of that kind of stuff. And so starting to look at that cash flow when clients are paying, how you do your invoices. So in your contracts, which again goes back to stuff we talked excuse me, on the first webinar, is in your contract, you have when are your payments due? Well, my payments are due on, and I have a marketing consulting company, so I like to have clients on retention, on retainer. So I usually have like a 12-month contract with them, and I bill on the first of the month. So for August, I bill August 1st. And so if I want, or I don't bill, it's due August 1st. So if I want that payment from my client by August 1st, a lot of them have accounting departments or people that, they have a cycle of how their accounts receivable pays things. So on the 15th of the prior month is when I sit down and I do my billing. So I'm giving my clients like a 2-week buffer to get me paid by the 1st. Sometimes they nail it, sometimes they're still a little late. And it's just something that we have to deal with. But I've learned over the years that I can't bill somebody on the 1st and expect the payment on the 1st. So when you're looking at your cash flow and how what you have coming in that month, you need to look at it the prior month so you can see, okay, who do I need to bill and when do I need to reasonably bill that person? What do I have coming in this month so I know when I can pay myself to pay my expenses, and just kind of get a feel for that budget. So setting down, again, I'm an Excel fan, so I use Excel a lot, but making that budget for yourself. So you have a budget for your business that you're looking at when insurance payments are due, and that's health insurance. My business pays my health insurance. I'm an S Corp now, so they can do that because I'm an employee. All that technical fun stuff, you can look at to determine whether you have to pay yourself to pay your health insurance or you pay it from your company, however that works. But sitting down and budgeting, making a budget plan for your business and then making a budget plan for you personally is going to be needed because now that stuff kind of commingles, but it can't commingle, but it does commingle. And so like my business pays for my cell phone, maybe that's a better example. And so that bill is coming out automatically, and I need to make sure I have money in that account to pay Verizon so that my cell phone can stay on. And so budgeting that, planning for that, different months, freelance business ebbs and flows. And so you've got to make sure you have a plan for when you don't have enough money coming in that month. And that is savings. And so you have to make sure that just because you're bringing in $5,000 this month doesn't mean you transfer that full $5,000 and pay yourself a salary, and take that all out of your business account. You need to leave money in there for the different bills that are coming out, and you need to leave money in there for quarterly taxes because taxes are a real thing everybody has to deal with. And when you are in business, usually you're going to pay quarterly taxes. And then since I'm an S Corp now, I have to pay the unemployment tax quarterly as well. And so there might be more than just your IRS quarterly tax you're paying. It just depends, again, how you are set up, and you've got to estimate that. Again, even just if you don't want to hire an accountant to deal with all of your stuff, consulting with one, paying one to consult on how you should use stuff. There's like Gusto is a really great program. Well, I don't know, really great is maybe an overstatement, but I've used it in the past to pay quarterly taxes and to pay unemployment, and they file it for you and they, have the signature and everything. And so that can again be a program or an app that you use so that you're paying what you need to pay on time, and you don't get in trouble, because you will get in trouble. They will send you letters. They will deal with that. They're not going to forget that you owe taxes. So if you're bringing in $5,000 a month and you're draining your business account every month of that, when it comes time to pay your taxes, you won't have money for that if you're not saving it somewhere. So however that looks for you, make sure you also in your budget have a savings plan. And for when months maybe you need $3,000 to pay your bills, you're bringing in 5,000, and then all of a sudden you're only bringing in $2,000 a month. So if you didn't save that money and bank that money away, now you're going to be in trouble when you don't have as many clients one month. And then, yep, so taxes, big deal. Don't forget those. And then W-9. So make sure you download a W-9 form, fill it out for your business because your clients are going to need that. They're going to need that for their records. A lot of them want that to start with a contract. So download that and have that ready. 1099 forms are something that you will receive from your clients when it comes tax time. And then also, like I have a business partner who has his own company and he does all of our design work, but the money all comes through my business. And then I pay him his portion that him and I have contracts set up for. And so then I issue him a 1099 at the end of the year. And these are just those important tax details that you need to know and have ready for when you start your business. So that is kind of the very quick nuts and bolts of some cash flow budgeting financial considerations when you start your business to start kind of thinking about, because they will sneak up on you, or you can be prepared for at least the basics when you start, because we want to be effective. And if you're like me, it's not something you want to give a lot of brain power to. You just kind of want it to happen. And if you have things set up, like I reconcile my bank account every month, I reconcile my credit card every month, so I can put it in my Excel sheet, say what it was for. So we all, me and my accountant, are on the same page. Then I don't have to do it all at the end of the year when I don't remember who I took out to coffee on the 14th, you know? So just some things to think about for your financial areas. And I will let Jenny take it away on productivity.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Dana. Yeah, a lot of that resonates with me, especially the tax elements and the saving up, because it can be really tricky and getting and there's definitely a through line between these two ideas because it's all about consistency. And I'm going to talk about, managing multiple projects at the same time and how to, kind of stay on top of a whole bunch of, oftentimes if there are multiple projects, there are multiple people involved, and kind of how to keep everyone on the same page, and different tricks, different tools that you can use to that end. And as Dana mentioned, I do have a handful of online tools that are either free or cheap and are insanely helpful, and so I'll go through those at the end. So first, staying organized, as a freelancer, as a business owner, getting organized is so important. And it's something that in the beginning, as I was just starting out and just trying to build up, a book of work and, trying to figure out how I could get clients in the first place, staying organized was really tough for me. So I kind of started with my calendar, and that encompasses a lot of different things, as far as figuring out, what days you're going to just kind of block off just to do the creative work. Like you have to give yourself time to do that creative work during the week. That's something that I learned kind of early on, was just creating those blocks in which there was not going to be meetings. I would save that time for myself. And in the beginning, sometimes it was at, until like 10 o'clock at night just to get things done as I was trying to build up that work. But having that guaranteed time for yourself every week, it's so helpful. And then also with calendaring, I have a lot I teach at CSU, and so I have a lot of kind of consistent obligations. And so with my calendar, I have two to check. I have my Gmail account that manages kind of several different calendars, several different aspects at once, and then I have my CSU calendar on which people can drop meetings and stuff like that. And so I this is my visual aid. I literally do a paper calendar every week, in which I'll do it either Sunday afternoon or first thing Monday morning, depending on what my schedule looks like. And I use this, and I started doing this maybe 3 years ago. I'm looking to see, yeah, 3 years ago. I was literally looking to see how many I have because I keep them. I don't know why. But but it's so helpful because I can compare the CSU calendar with the Gmail calendar before the week starts. And so I can identify last minute conflicts. I can make sure I have that time for myself to do the creative work that is not interrupting meetings. With CSU, my role as an instructor includes a lot of grading. So I always include, like a 3-hour block every week for that, and so I can make sure that those elements are there. And then it's also just a good memory jog. If you've set a meeting like a month ago or so, you're like, oh, that thing is Wednesday, and so it kind of keeps everything on top of mind, and it helps to keep you on track really well. And if you're on track, if you're working on a project in which you have other freelancers, if you need to reach out to a client, it really helps, your organization helps their organization. It helps everyone just kind of stay on the same page. With that goes hour counts. I have, my freelance business is, I'm a graphic designer, and I do, a lot of web design as well. And so with projects in either of those worlds, there are a lot that are on an hourly basis. And so I do have clients that request an hour count on a periodic basis. Usually I do that every week or 2 weeks, just to kind of make sure we have enough budget to pay me at the end of the project or the end of the month, whatever the case may be. And so going through my calendar and looking at that, and going into Harvest real quick and tracking my time and seeing how much I have, that's also a good memory jog, as I'm looking at my calendar at the beginning of the week, to get those details out to the people who need them. And then also considering your team, as you're working on a bigger project, like if I have a website project going on, oftentimes I will bring in a development team that I adore. They do wonderful work. They speak English, and I've been working, instead of techies, and I've been working with them for a handful of years now. And so there are occasionally reach outs that I need to make with them, just kind of like, how is this one element going, or I have this asset for you, so that's another kind of element that you can include in that calendar check, is just making sure that, on Monday, your team, your freelancers have everything they need from you. You've asked them all your questions. You've gotten onto their to-do list if you need to. And so you're kind of keeping everything on track and on time. And so doing that can be kind of a trick, but there are so many tools out there. There's so many. When Dana and I were talking about this webinar, we were just kind of like, oh yeah, like there's this and that, and there's just so many out there for so many different purposes, which is wonderful. And keeping your team on track by using those tools is absolutely so helpful. But there are a lot of things that you need to consider with that. As you are working through a project or many projects, you're going to have a task list, and so is everyone else on your team, even your client. You're going to need information from them from time to time. You're going to need feedback. And so keeping those task lists up to date, and using those tools, using your calendar, and keeping everyone on track will help you hit those markers and those deadlines in style instead of just kind of, the flurry of activity at the end, which sometimes is unavoidable, but it's nice to avoid it if you can. And with deadline management, one thing that I am a huge proponent of is as you are starting, especially a larger project, before you even kick it off, determine what products you're going to use to keep everyone on board and organized. Are you going to use a product like Monday or Trello, or are you going to use, like, does everyone have a Gmail account so you can use Google Workspace to keep everyone on track? And does everyone have access to the elements of those products that they need so that we can all kind of have visibility into the documents and the calendars that we need? So before we start a big project, I tend to schedule out regular meetings, either weekly or biweekly. And sometimes they're just 15-minute check-ins, but sometimes they can go longer. Like if we have something to look at and talk about, if there's a big proof, or if the website is ready to go, then sometimes they can stretch to like an hour or more. But just having that cadence, that regular rhythm of like, okay, well, we're meeting with this client on this day every single week or every other week. It gives the client a little bit of reassurance that, if there's something going on, okay, I don't have the time to reach out today. I don't have the time to look today, but I know that we're talking on Wednesday. And so it kind of gives that. And then it also keeps, me as the business owner and the freelancer honest as far as like, okay, everything will be due no later than Wednesday. Like I have to deliver something by that date. That's our charge. And having that kind of rhythm, it also really helps communication. I found that, having those meetings, it even helps the time outside of that, where people will email me and say like, okay, well, when we talk about things on Wednesday, let's drop this on the agenda. And so it gives them, kind of that idea, that latitude to say like, okay, this is a thing we need to talk about, not this moment, but let's remember this for when we meet. And so it's, those weekly or bi-weekly meetings can be so helpful in just keeping communication flowing and keeping everyone on the same path. Another key element to those weekly meetings and to dealing with clients and other freelancers is resource management. And from my perspective, it tends to be a lot of like, logo packages, fonts, various, sets of photographs or other things that are being used in a design that the client may need to have access to. It could also be written stuff, and at my job at the university, I teach in the journalism department. And so there's absolutely a need for, banks of stories that are set to go somewhere to be published either by student media or maybe a professional outlet. And so, having that access made available to the entire team can be really important. And with logo sets, it really helps to make sure that everyone has exactly the right logo. And, that can be so tricky. It never ceases to amaze me that once a bad file gets in there, it's like glitter. It seems to be just everywhere all at once, so fast. And so managing those assets and making sure everyone has the most current version of whatever logos or fonts or files that they need, and then getting rid of the rest of them, it eases the process in a very unique way, but a way that is incredibly important to keep everyone on brand and on track, and to make sure that the project is being represented in the right way. So a few options. So Harvest is the tool that I use to track time, report out, how different projects are going. And I'll just go to the overview here. And as you can see, this screenshot here shows this is the time tracker. But you see in the menu bar, the orange menu bar here, you can see how many things you can track using Harvest. And I have used it for a handful of years now. I think like 8 years, 8 or 9 years, because it is just that simple. And, it keeps everything in the same place. I track time on an hourly basis. You can either do, set your own increments, enter in how much time you've taken, or you can use, they have a stopwatch function. There's also a corresponding app on your phone. So if you're at a meeting or something like that and you're not near your laptop, you can hit your stopwatch in those situations as well. It makes it really easy to track expenses. You can actually upload the receipt and describe the expense right in the app, right online. And then it will automatically attach it when you generate an invoice through Harvest. It'll automatically attach those expenses and those receipts so that you can create an expense report that goes along with any invoice that you send. We can also manage your clients and your team. So everyone who's involved in a project can have, a line item in your invoice. And this is something that, you can share it out with whoever needs to have that information. I worked for an agency for a little bit that also used Harvest, and we all had access to the front end so that we could, track time, make adjustments to contact information and stuff like that. And it was just a really easy way to make sure that we were all on the same page. There are a ton more features. There's a pretty robust reporting feature where you can check, all kinds of things from hour counts to income to, what invoices need to be paid. And so it's just really kind of like an all-in-one business management tool that I really like using. For managing, oops. Sorry, I did not open this earlier today. Monday is a product that is really good for managing kind of task lists, and it's not going to cooperate with me. Sorry, guys. I'm not finding what I want to find, but it's a really good way to track various tasks that you have going on, and you can actually schedule deadlines through Monday and assign them to people. You can mention different people on your team. It has a feature where you can actually upload a file, so you can upload just kind of a quick proof if you want some feedback, and people can comment on it. So Monday is very handy in that way. I also mentioned Google Workspace, which is, it doesn't cost, but then it's also, unless you have the business suite, but it's so robust and it's very easy to share it out even with people who don't have a Gmail account, and it's just super handy, and I feel like there's so many different features and apps, and they're available on your phone or on your laptop. And it's a very easy way to share things out. Like even using Google Drive just to manage assets can be so handy, because again, you can comment on them. You can do all kinds of things and just keep everyone on the same page. And then finally, Dropbox, which is one that I use for larger files. And I do have a business account with Dropbox that I've had for many years for that reason. And Dropbox is handy for uploading. I've had to have larger video files uploaded, and maintain that space. And my Google Drive did fill at one point in time. And so Dropbox, having that account just kind of enables me to have that latitude to keep things around and to keep organized. And again, the asset management piece uh, is really made easy with Dropbox. You can share it out and make sure that everything's current and add comments, whatever you need to do. But my biggest tip for using these tools is to really consider yourself, your workflow, and your team as you're making the decisions as far as which tools you want to use. Considering the features that are available, looking into if there are any costs. Like sometimes there's a per seat cost, and it may not be much, but it's definitely one of those expenses that you need to keep an eye on. And even, Harvest is not free, but it's not very expensive, but it's definitely, it increases as you add more members to your team who you give access to that product. And so as you're looking through these tools that are available online, and they all have their uses, considering those factors is pretty important. So that is kind of all that I have as far as like managing multiple products or projects and keeping everyone on the same path, and getting people to all be on the same page as you are all pushing the ball over the finish line, to mix a metaphor.
Jenny, I laugh because I just filled up my Google and now I have to pay $1.99 a month. So it's not a lot, but it makes me mad every time I pay it.
I have the same feeling. It's like, oh shoot, I was so close.
Yep.
Well, Dana and Jenny, that was awesome. So much good knowledge in there and tips and tricks for us. For those of you who are still with us and have lingering questions, that Q&A from Slido is open for you. So feel free to shoot some questions in there. If you want to just chat it to the group, if you can't find that Slido, if it's just too difficult, feel free to just message it right in the chat. You can private message me. Or we can just have everyone see it. Doesn't really matter. So take some time. If there's any questions right now that are popping up, we will start to kind of go through those. If anyone has any recommendations, what they're looking for, are there any other things in the freelancing world that you are really still lost on or confused on? Definitely maybe message that as well. I did just send in that link from the first webinar that Dana and Jenny did on starting the business responsibilities of a freelancer. So that's also something to check out as well. And I have one question, we could start with it. How do you pick a business name? Or how have you picked a business name for your own business?
Jenny, you see a lot more new businesses maybe than I do. Do you have?
I do, and I teach entrepreneurial journalism at CSU. So during which they all are charged with creating a media outlet. So I have talked with a lot of people in a lot of different ways about naming the baby. How do you do that? And it really is. It can be that intense. And I was an accountant that I had many years ago until he moved, unfortunately. I was at that point where I wanted my business name to be more than just my name. And finally he was like, Jenny, just pick something. It doesn't matter. You just need to have something to call it. And I was just like, man, that's kind of crappy advice, but sure, whatever. But, so I wound up with Fischer Creative, which is, that's my last name. But it's, there are so many different ways to go with it. And I've known people who I've worked with to kind of work on that brand who understand they need to rebrand. I actually worked with a company at one point in time that needed to rename in a bad way because it was kind of esoteric. The name was, I don't remember what it is anymore. It was many years ago, but it was a pronounceable word, but it was like a combination of initials of his children. And so it wasn't something that popped to mind. Like, case in point, I don't remember it right now, and so as we were going through the rebrand, he wound up landing on a different combination, and it's Kellison was the name that he landed on. He has a child named Kelly and a child named Allison, so it's the same idea, but just a little bit more memorable. and something more understandable. And I think that is definitely kind of a key point. You want to name your business something that makes sense in your industry, but that also makes sense to you, but also that people are going to remember and that's going to land with them. And then also do the URL check before you name your business, because you want to make sure that you have the ability to buy the URL that is relevant to your business. And then also the infamous, the cocktail hour trick. Can you give someone your business name and or your URL in the middle of a happy hour, and will they remember it without having to write it down? And so just having that bit to kind of test is helpful.
Awesome. I love that cocktail hour moment. That's a funny way to put it. Like, yeah, that's actually, if I don't remember it then, I won't remember it later.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
What recommendations do either of you have about a timeline? Are those tasks that you guys have been talking about in setting up a business or kind of getting in the ball rolling? What order do we do these tasks in? Is there an order? Can I start really wherever? What timeline did you guys use?
I would just start wherever you are. I think the important thing is starting. So not having that, freeze where you feel so overwhelmed. So you just don't do anything. You just ignore invoicing clients, or you ignore figuring out how to be productive. And I think, both Jenny and I, through our chats, have tried many different things. And sometimes for the season you're in, it's going to work. And then you grow out of it and you can try something else, or technology gets better, or whatever. And so I think, registering your business, doing the business checks that Jenny said, making sure the name, the name is probably the first thing. Because when you tell people, hey, I started a business, they're going to want to know the business name. It's just kind of our natural next question. So thinking about that, having a good idea. I also, like Jenny, used my last name. Mine is Volney Ventures. That was from an email I started in college because I wanted to travel. I literally thought it would be like Adventures, which now it's Adventures, but it's like advertising on taglines I use. So it's kind of weird that way. But Volney Ventures has nothing to do with advertising, and it's my name that people see, but when I invoice people, it's still a very professional name to put out there. And so I have one client, and I wasn't around when he named it, but I asked him, it was a landscaping company, and it was AAA landscaping, like AAA. And I was like, how'd you come up with that name? Because his kids don't all have A names. And, I was like, where did that even come from? And he's like, I wanted to be the first one in the phone book. Like, it was that old when he started it. And so he's like, I wanted to be the first name in the phone book. And so it's just different considerations. But I would name your company. I would register your company. I would do everything Jenny said about the URL checks and all of that stuff. And if your friends and family, like it, sometimes they might be more honest with you than colleagues or something like that. And then I would start to, figure out clients, because you need clients before you can invoice. You need clients before you can figure out how you're best productive. I'm a night person. I'm best at night. And that doesn't always jive with everybody. So I have to make sure that I have days where I can get up at a normal person's hour to have those meetings and to reply to emails. And over the years, it has now I have a pretty good schedule where I'm not up working until 3 a.m. I can be up at 9 a.m. To email people back and have those meetings. And so I think it's going to be an evolution, but you just start. And then, but you have, this webinar series is amazing, so that when it is time for your productivity, you can come back here and you can see all of the things that Jenny has told us about. And then you can see, does Monday work for you? Maybe Harvest works better. Maybe Excel works better. Like, however, I laughed at your calendar, Jenny, because I have a paper calendar that's like right here that I was just looking at. And then I have all my notebooks that I also have for clients. And then I have my 2 calendars on my phone. So you never want to forget something, but it's just how you work better. And I think that's going to take you a little bit to figure out because you're no longer 9 to 5. You are no longer on somebody else's schedule. You're on your own, but you also are on your client schedule and your team schedule. So it's a lot to take in. But I would just start your company and then start, the natural evolution of getting clients. And then as you deal with your clients, figuring out how to best do that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's like every timeline is different, and Dana and my timelines are, I feel this, that you were talking about, like however many years in you do this one task that feels so important, but you find what you need to do as you go along. And my business has absolutely evolved over time. It's been bigger than it is now. It's been smaller than it is now, and it just changes based on what I have going on in other places, based on client needs, all kinds of things. But I think, like, first and foremost, just to echo what Dana said, because it's really solid advice, just getting that business registration, getting the EIN, getting the business bank account, all those first steps, which are also in the webinar that's linked to in the chat. It's those first steps are the most important. And you can wait on a lot of things if you need to. If you're starting small, if you don't have a lot of cash on hand, there are things that you can wait to do. But getting those nuts and bolts done so that you have everything in place so that you can do business when you get a client, that should be your bottom line.
There's a follow-up question to this one. How about the plan for like finances? Should I get a credit card and a business like, bank account and everything before I even start looking and finding clients? Do I start looking and finding clients and then setting that up in the same realm? How do I kind of go about like setting up my businesses and my nuts and bolts, but then my clients are the most important part of that? What if I can't find clients and I have this credit card that I'm not using or a bank account that I set up? How did you guys kind of finagle that realm?
I will say that when I started my business 14 years ago, I came up with a name, or pirated my own email name, decided I liked it and I was going to do it. And then I registered with the state. So, made sure my last name isn't really a common name, but made sure, of course, it wasn't used. The internet isn't what it is now. So that was a fairly simple search. And then registering it with the state, making sure I could do that. I had a full-time job at the time. This is before I quit that job or anything, because you can register that. It's not a lot of money. I forget now, but it's like $100 in Wyoming anyway. And then it's like $60 a year to keep it in good standing. And so that's not a giant cash outlay if it didn't work out. So I registered my business, got the EIN number. I went to the bank, started the bank account. Again, I didn't get a credit card until I was 7 years into my business. I didn't need one. But I did that so that I was official. I was officially an LLC in the state's eyes. I could do business. Then I had a bank account where I think I had to put like $100 in to start the account or something like that. I had a bank account so that when I did find clients, I could put the money in and have it. And so that was like the first two things that I did right off the bat. And then I didn't do anything else. I didn't buy QuickBooks. I didn't do any of that. That was like in May. I didn't land my first client until July. So then I decided to use all of my saved up vacation to start taking time off of work to start getting involved, in the community and hitting the pavement and talking to potential clients. Anyway, that's in our first one. But, and so then I started looking for clients. Then when I got a client, my mom was like, you really need QuickBooks and you need an accountant. And I was like, oh, okay. Because she's like, you've still got to pay taxes. And I was like, nah, okay. But she was right. And so then I got QuickBooks and then I found out how to invoice. And then I started learning that way. Then I learned how to actually do what the client is asking and what I promised, and so, and the contracts. And so it just kind of comes in steps, I think, because it can be overwhelming to think you have to learn all this at first, because how I thought I would work was not what actually worked to do the work. If that makes sense. And like Jenny said, which was great, I loved all of her productivity stuff, is that you have to schedule time to do the work. You have to schedule time for the meetings. You have to schedule time to talk to your teams. You have to schedule time to do the work itself. So just because you have a meeting doesn't mean the work gets done. We all know that. That's just more work. And so you have to actually schedule to get it done, and to focus on that. I can't be doing I can't be trying to bill my clients and trying to do an ad campaign on Google at the same time. Like I need time slots for that stuff. And so you'll just learn as it goes. That would be my 2 cents. Definitely the name and a bank account. The credit card would come later. I just wanted to mention it because it did make my life a lot easier. Also easy to charge on that thing. So careful.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And my timeline was very similar to yours. And actually, at the time that I started freelancing, maybe 15, 16 years ago, it was just me. Like I didn't name the business for a long time because I didn't feel a need to because it was just me. Um, and so I'm trying to remember. I got a debit card for the business maybe even 5 years ago, and I just tried to kind of bootstrap it, rely on savings and all of that kind of stuff. And every once in a while, if I got a good project, I would just kind of bankroll that money and keep it in. And there's only been, where my situation is very different, is that there's only been probably a 2 year span of time where I was just working as a freelancer. Like my freelance role is very much aside of whatever other work I have going on at the time. So my structure is completely different. Um, but it's still, I still need the same team. I still have an accountant that I rely on. I have had to seek out legal advice before. There are a lot of people that I have had to have on my side in order to do business the right way. But that, in the state of Colorado, the costs are very similar for setting up a business. And that was definitely, once I got Fischer Creative licensed, I, did that, checked the URL was available. And I think it's somewhere around $50 a year, I think, to keep it in good standing. And so, and Colorado, I don't know if it's the same in Wyoming. I think it must be, but like they'll send you an email, like they'll remind you, and they'll
They
tell
want
you
your
all
money.
about it. Yeah,
Yes. And they're
yeah,
like, here's your number. This is the link.
yeah,
And I think I
yeah.
pay
Just click here.
64 because I won't send it in. But yeah, same
Yeah,
thing. They remind you.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's great. I don't have any more questions that are popping into the chat right now. So I think we'll kind of just end it there. That was very awesome and helpful. And for those of you who are still with us and listening, definitely take a look at that other webinar that Dana and Jenny ran. It's about an hour long, a little bit longer because we had a bunch of questions at the end. So if those questions are also super helpful, definitely take a look at that. If there's any other questions that are lingering in your mind saying, hey, I need something more, I need another freelancing webinar. What are you looking for? What is that? Send me a chat, send me an email, call DWC. We're always interested. We're always eager to talk to you guys and help your professional growth after either taking a certificate program with us or not. We just want all of you professionals to have a successful and lucrative career. So appreciate you, Dana and Jenny, again. Thank you so much. That was awesome. And for those of you who have joined us, thank you again. And I'm hoping to see you again soon.
Right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.